One, two, three, 1, 2, 3.
Dress Up Darling is a show that in anime community terms aired 55 years ago, but when it was airing it was nigh inescapable on social media. Screenshots, clips, avatars, and opinions. Oh, so many opinions. And one such opinion that quickly rose to prominence was that the MC Gojo was a bland wooden board, and gosh darn it, he should have made a move already. Luckily, in the 2 months since I disappeared from this channel, the seasonal discourse has moved on, and I don't really see any opinions on the show anymore. Well, any that aren't in one of those bad, "What kind of show is this?" tweets. My brother in Christ, I am at my limit. But I'm sure this conversation will be relevant again at some point, and when have I ever made a timely video? So after sitting on these thoughts for a few months, it's finally time to dress up the darling. Stay tuned in 5 months when I fire off all my hottest Shikimori takes. Our dress-up journey begins where the story does, with our leading man, Gojo Wakana. Gojo is an introvert, and I want to linger on that fact for a second because I feel like people don't actually understand what that means. He's not just an unpopular average guy, he's willingly putting himself in this situation because he cares more about his hobbies than attempting to socially interact with people that he thinks will just say his interests are weird. He values his own time and his own thoughts over trying to cater to other people. And he's essentially just unlucky that he hasn't been able to find a friend willing to reach out to him, or express interest in his art. In fact, at the start of the series, I've never seen a man who looked so all alone. He could use a little company. But the rain... All of this is why that initial connection with Marin is so strong, because he's finally found someone that is caring enough to value his interests. And despite being an extrovert, she also understands the frustration of not being able to share your favorite hobby with other people. And if you know a real introvert, the few people they are willing to open up to are the ones they form incredibly strong relationships with. However, and this is the important part, that takes time. The only way to gain social experience is to gain social experience. For Gojo, that lack of friends and shy demeanor has an actual effect on the way he acts. Mainly, that he is shy and has no experience talking to other people, let alone girls in his room. It's a bit ridiculous to believe that someone who, by all accounts, hasn't casually spoken to a girl in about 10 years would suddenly be the smoothest dude alive. He's not boring, he's shy, he's not lacking personality, he's just quiet. He's an introvert. Believe me, there are plenty of bland personality-less main characters in anime, and there are also plenty of main romance leads that just kinda suck. And contrary to popular belief, those do have their place. But it's an insult to Gojo to even suggest he's an iota like one of those archetypes. So, if you could tell, it has been admittedly hard for me to wrap my head around people calling a well-written representation of a focused introvert a wooden board. I'm sorry he's not yelling all the time? From my point of view, there is nothing that he does that is out of character for how someone as shy and inexperienced as he is would act. If anything, he's a bit more lively than you might expect from an introvert, probably because he's excited about improving his skills. He's far from wooden, and it's clear that his shy nature is what causes him to act timid or take things slowly at times. We all know Marin likes Gojo because we can hear her thoughts, he can't. And it's a pretty safe bet that given his history and literally what he says about her in the first episode, that he just thinks she's out of his league, even if he does like her. She's just his friend, she's just being nice to him because they share similar interests. Also, his other fun trait is that he's a teen boy. Do you properly understand how stupid teen boys can be? When I was 18, a girl I had been talking to for a while and was interested in asked me to go to a formal dance with her. And I responded, "But I won't know anyone there." She then replied, "But you'll know me." I still did not go to the dance. Wow, sport, wonder why she stopped talking to you. We as a community like to clown on the denseness of male leads sometimes, but I don't know, it might be closer to realistic than we think. As a matter of fact, it's good to remember that they're both high schoolers. and high schoolers are incredibly goofy and awkward at times. I know anime has a habit of making high schoolers mature, god-killing super adults, but here we're just being given a portrayal of real teens. Like, I wouldn't even call this a slow burn romance, it's just two people that like each other being bad at actually verbally expressing that. Minus the mind games. I think people willfully misremember their time in high school or just want straight wish fulfillment in their romance, which, I mean, there are plenty of shows for that. Like, I love Bunny Senpai to death, and I really should make an updated video about it. But Sakata is kind of a more personable version of the guy a lot of people like to think they are, or were. You know, unfairly ostracized, firing off witty remarks, smarter than everyone else, not taking crap from anybody, and stumbling headfirst into a perfect girlfriend because you don't sleep. He's a more well-adjusted loner who's secretly really cool archetype. And as much fun as those characters can sometimes be in anime, people that act like that in real life are just hindering themselves socially. And I can assure you, not coming off to others as cool and mysterious. Gojo is just an actual loner. Like, just a guy who wants to be left alone. Sure, he has quote-unquote secret skills, but he's not crafting sick comebacks and trying to show up the popular guys with his sewing ability. He's just doing things he enjoys with one of the few people he enjoys spending time with, and unfortunately, that doesn't really lend itself as well to being a self-projection vessel. The problem people are having here all kind of stems from this super toxic masculinity thing where it's like, wow, this dude must suck because he's not getting laid. Like, damn, wow, what a loser, he wants to make this girl happy? It's such a core misunderstanding of the point of a romance story that it's actually kind of hard to even engage in a fruitful conversation with someone that thinks this. Mostly because to them, the story has a clear endpoint and they seem to want to get there as quickly as possible. The relationship doesn't matter, only the benefits. This is not to say intimacy can't be worked in as a crucial part of a story, but to do that well, it generally requires maturity and nuanced writing. It's never the point of the story, but it can enhance it, similar to how it works in a real relationship. If you're looking for a story where it's the point, then may I suggest a different genre. There was just so much, oh well, if I was in the show, things would be different, smug emoji face, I would have already gotten with her, on Twitter. And I understand that the people selling that narrative don't really care about anything beyond hot girl is hot, but no, you would not. The show very explicitly shows Marin coldly rejecting a traditionally assertive quote-unquote Chad guy at the beginning of the show. Why? Because he doesn't care about her or her interests, just that she's hot. So I guess unbeknownst to these people, they're already in the show. And in that vein, as far as the there's no way she would fall for Gojo goes, that's just projection, my friend. Gojo is great boyfriend material. He cooks, he sews, he's incredibly kind and earnest, and even gets invested in your most niche interests. I want to reiterate that again, as a pseudo piece of advice. He cares about what makes Marin happy and works incredibly hard to help her achieve her goals. She did not fall for him because of his looks, although he is kinda built though. She fell for him because he cares about her as a person, not as an object. And I don't know, that feels like an important lesson for some people. Regardless, all these complaints funnel into a weird phenomenon that's kinda hard to grasp, because if the main complaint of why don't they just get together already was actually true, then people would be screaming their praise for Horimiya or like chivalry of a failed knight or something. And as the world's #1 chivalry fan, I know that isn't happening. I think there are valid criticisms that can be leveled at Dress Up Darling. It's not this perfect piece of romance, there's plenty of this to go around, but those criticisms are mostly nuanced conversations, which is not something that works well on social media. So this causes something as simple as why don't they sleep together already to become the driving force of conversation from people who don't enjoy the show. It's fairly black and white and easy to make dumb jokes about. And this is a shame when I think there's some interesting parts to this show that deserve discussion. I think you can acknowledge a lot of what is true about Gojo and Marin's relationship while also acknowledging that she can also kind of be a manic pixie dream girl at times. Also that sometimes the show likes to cater to its audience, some of which I think is contextualized by the show, but we're getting into a whole different video topic at this point. Essentially, I don't think the core themes of a show should be thrown away because there is a breast, and I also don't think we should look the other way at fanservice just because the writing is good. It's a nuanced show-by-show situation, and obviously that's why it's not a conversation that ever works on Twitter. But I kinda got sidetracked there. Ultimately, I think the core of Dress Up Darling is a charming romance story that really does the act of cosplay justice. It's a story about how two people who couldn't be more outwardly different can actually bond over shared interests. And it's in that context that I think Gojo is an expertly crafted character and just an all-around great guy. I'd date him. I think Dress Up Darling does leave us with some good advice to take into your everyday life. Don't mistake quietness for meekness, and don't mistake an introvert for someone with no personality. Most people probably still will, but luckily, Marin has exquisite taste.